In the golden age of Athens, a city bursting with art, power, and thinkers who called themselves wise, there walked a man who looked nothing like a genius. He was short, stout, with bulging eyes and a snub nose. He wore the same simple robe year-round and rarely wore sandals. This was Socrates, and he was the most dangerous man in Athens. His battlefield was not the plains of Marathon, though he had been a brave soldier. His battlefield was the agora, the bustling public square. His weapons were not a spear or shield, but two simple, devastating tools: questions and logic. This was his defiance. While other wise men, the sophists, charged hefty fees to teach wealthy young men how to win arguments, Socrates taught for free, and his goal wasn't to win, it was to find the truth. He would approach a powerful general and ask, "What is courage?" The general, confident in his medals and victories, would give a simple answer. "Courage is standing your ground in battle," the general might say. "But what if a strategic retreat saves the army? Is that not also courageous?" Socrates would counter, his eyes twinkling. He would continue, question after question, like a sculptor chipping away at a block of marble. He wasn't trying to embarrass the general, though he often did. He was trying to force the general to think, to examine the very foundations of his beliefs. He peeled back layers of arrogance and assumption until the man, often red-faced and angry, was forced to admit, "Socrates, I do not know what courage is." This was his genius. In a city that thought it knew everything, Socrates was the only man brave enough to admit he knew nothing. This, he claimed, was the only true wisdom. He was the gadfly of Athens, a stinging insect sent by the gods to keep the great, lazy horse of the state from falling asleep. His defiance was not loud or violent. It was quiet and intellectual, which made it far more threatening to the men in power. He questioned their laws, their gods, and their morality. Young men, like the brilliant Plato, flocked to him, captivated by his method. They saw in him an honest search for virtue, justice, and the meaning of a good life. But the powerful men he had exposed did not see a philosopher, they saw a menace. They saw a man who was undermining tradition and corrupting their sons, turning them against the state. So, they dragged him to court. The charges were absurd: corrupting the youth, and not believing in the gods of the city. This was Socrates' final and greatest performance. At 70 years old, facing death, he showed no fear. He did not beg for his life. Instead, his defiant genius shone brighter than ever. He defended his life's work not as a crime, but as the highest service to Athens. He told the jury they were not condemning him, but condemning themselves to a life without critical thought. He famously said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." The jury, composed of 501 Athenians, was swayed more by anger than by reason. They found him guilty. They offered him a chance to suggest his own punishment. A lesser man would have suggested exile. But Socrates, in a final act of brilliant defiance, proposed that Athens should reward him. He suggested he be given free meals for life at the Prytaneum, an honor reserved for Olympic heroes, for being the city's greatest benefactor. This enraged the jury, and they quickly voted for the only other option: death by drinking hemlock, a poison. In his final days, his friends, including a distressed Plato, gathered in his prison cell. They had a plan to help him escape. Socrates refused. His genius was not just in logic, but in an unwavering commitment to his principles. He had lived his entire life obeying the laws of Athens, he explained, and he would not defy them now, even when they were unjust. To do so would be to destroy the very principles he had spent his life defending. As the sun set over Athens, Socrates calmly took the cup of hemlock. Surrounded by his weeping students, the defiant genius of philosophy discussed the immortality of the soul, his mind sharp and clear until the very end. He died, but his questions did not. Socrates himself never wrote a single word, but his student, Plato, captured his spirit, his defiance, and his genius for all time. In losing his life, Socrates won an immortal victory for philosophy, proving that one man's courage to ask why can be more powerful than any army and more enduring than any empire.